Well, thank you, and it is a real privilege to be here this evening and to follow not just what I may say, Sir Millicent, was an extraordinarily moving address about your personal experience, but to also follow two politicians from different parties, which shows the continued cross-party support for the work that we do. Following, I should say as well, the work started all those decades ago by Lord Fowler, to whom I pay the warmest of tributes as well. Thank you so much for your work. Now, I understand that many of Terrence's friends described him as vibrant, and I'm pleased that he actually walked within these walls for a very brief time, of course, as a writer for Hansard. And if he were alive today, he would be celebrating his 80th birthday this year. Now, of course, much has changed. Deaths due to HIV and AIDS have decreased substantially, but we all know that there is so much more still to be done, particularly for those who suffered from blood-borne illnesses, including HIV, following the infected blood scandal, which I, as Paymaster General, am responsible for at the moment. Now, tens of thousands of people received infected blood products in settings that they should have been able to trust. And what happened to these people, the pain and the suffering that they and their families went through, and I've been privileged to meet so many of the victims personally myself, is a national tragedy. And I am aware, every single day that I am a minister, that they have been waiting such a long time for action. Now, following the Infected Blood Inquiry's 2024 report, we created the Infected Blood Compensation Authority, or IBCA as we know it, to deliver a compensation scheme to people infected and affected by this scandal. Now, we are making significant headway. The first payments were made in December last year. Now I can say that over £2.1 billion in offers have been made. 2,777 people have received an offer of compensation, and £1.6 billion has been out. And I want to say at this stage a huge thank you to Richard for his tireless work on this issue. I've known Richard for a long time, and he and his team have proudly championed all those infected with HIV through contaminated blood. Richard, thank you so much for what you've done and what you continue to do. And Richard, only earlier this year actually, made very clear to me the power and the potential of World AIDS Day, specifically to act as a rallying point for fairly compensating people. And I completely agreed with him then, and I completely agree with him now. And I'm proud to say that IBCA has now made offers to over 90% of those infected with HIV who were registered, and they hope to have made offers to the remaining eligible living HIV claimants by the end of this year. But I say, and I always remind myself, that these are not just numbers. These are people. People with their own unique experiences. People with their own stories. And as I picture them in my mind's eye, I know that no amount of money can make up for what they have been through. But it also strengthens the imperative to make the compensation scheme fair and accessible. And the government is committed to supporting each and every person through this process. And indeed, in that too, I am grateful to Richard and everyone at the Terrence Higgins Trust for all they do in helping the government to do that. And we must also ensure that all those who've been impacted by this tragedy get the support and the recognition they deserve. And it was a solemn, very solemn privilege to have recently appointed the Infected Blood Memorial Committee. that held the first infected blood commemorative event, which I know was an important step forward for everyone involved. I should also say too that we are working on a fitting national memorial that will remember all those infected and affected by this tragedy. And I think I can say too that in saying that, in drawing upon that memory, that Terrence Higgins' spirit is greatly felt here today. And not just today, but I hope in every action that this government takes to support those with HIV and AIDS. Now, it is a privilege and an honour to have addressed you this evening, as it is a privilege and an honour to work across the House and indeed the government to right these historic wrongs. Thank you very much. Now, one thing I've always tried to do, I try to do this generally as a minister, is to act on feedback. And the last thing I would want to do is be in the Deputy Speaker's bad books. So I listen carefully to my instructions, and it gives me a real privilege to introduce to you our next speaker, my friend, our brilliant Health Secretary, and someone who is making an extraordinary difference for those infected with HIV and AIDS. Wes.